guys. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about oblique strains. It's something that's been popping up a lot, especially at the major league level. So there's been a lot of attention put on obliques over the last couple of months. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about what an oblique strain is, why we feel that they're popping up so much this year, and then what we can do to prevent them. And to help me, I asked a friend of mine, Dr. Katie House, she's a doctor, much smarter than I am, to come in, talk a little bit with me, help us understand what's going on, why there seems to be so many of these injuries going on, especially lately. So I met Katie when I was with the Padres. She came in over a summer and helped a lot of our injured players. I was currently injured. I was dealing with a hand injury. So very smart, has a lot of experience, and she's really going to help us look at this issue a little bit more. So just a little background information on her. She's a doctor of physical therapy, and currently she is an orthopedic resident at Kaiser of Southern California. So she's going to help us understand oblique strains a little bit more, and it's a good interview. So let's get right to it.
One thing that has been happening a lot this year in Major League Baseball, and not only Major League Baseball, but like even young kids, like really young kids, everyone is straining or pulling their oblique, which I really don't know exactly what that means. But can you explain to me like what exactly is happening? Like what is it when someone strains an oblique muscle?
Well, usually it's a traumatic event, like a one pitch or one swing that does it.
Right.
And, you'll get that same pain you get. Like when you pull your hamstring, it's just a sudden tightening of that muscle. Guys feel it, on their side. You know where your oblique is?
Yeah, absolutely. I do know where it is.
Okay, just making sure. Most of the time, it's not because they're not using their obliques or not because their obliques are weak. Most guys have pretty strong obliques.
Right.
It's really, there's a lot of rotation in baseball. So it's either coming from a decrease of flexibility in their hips. So like when you go to swing, you have to get a lot of internal rotation at your hips, right? If you don't have that, then the rotation has to come from somewhere else, right? So a lot of times the obliques will get overused in one swing, and that's where you strain it.
I got you. Well, one thing I've noticed, and I agree that, just being a player, we work out not our abs, but our core, like almost every day. So I feel like it's really weird that in the last few years, everybody's pulling obliques. Like I don't remember oblique pulls happening. Well, I'm sure they happen, but not at this rate. Like 5-10 years ago, like I don't remember hearing about it this much. And now it's like everybody hurts an oblique. So why is it all of a sudden? Are we like working out our core too much, or like not doing it the right way? I don't know.
I think a lot. I know it is kind of the new injury in baseball. They're saying.
Yeah.
I think it was there before, but I think a lot of what's happening now is a lot of focus on the core, which takes away from the focus on the legs. In the past, some of the older pitchers will tell you, like some of the older guys will say, used to work out their legs, and after pitching, like their legs would be tired. Guys don't say that anymore. It's more their arms tired, their arms sore, all those things, right? So the legs used to be a huge focus, and now it's a core thing. Now, like you said, a lot of the guys are focusing so much on their core, their obliques and their rectus, not so much the other muscle, the transverse, which we can talk about later if you would like.
I would love that.
I know you would. So, there's a lot less focus now on the hip mobility, the leg strength. There's all this focus on the core, and you're losing the base of your swing, the base of your pitching mechanics for both, pitchers and positional players. Everything needs to start from the legs up. So if you're focusing just on the core and you're not getting that hip mobility or that hip strength that you need, then when you go to swing and your obliques fire because they have to make up for that lacking mobility in your hips, that's where you get the strain. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. So basically what you're telling me is maybe not focus, still do our core workouts and stuff, but more focus or a little bit more focus on hip flexibility, mobility, leg strength, more like total body, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Because baseball is a completely rotational sport. Everything's done in rotation.
Right.
But a lot of the core workouts you do, you can tell me from what I've seen in my experience with the baseball players, is a lot of the core workouts you guys do are in one plane, which we would call the sagittal plane, right? Like you do sit-ups, which is in that one plane.
Right.
Or you do planks or things like that. There's not a lot of rotational training. I don't know. I could be wrong. You can correct me if that's true, but there needs to be a lot more training in the plane you guys work in, which is the rotation plane. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so like, are you saying more medicine ball workouts, like stuff like that, where we're twisting and tossing things and stuff like that?
Yeah, which gets more than just, a sit-up, which we'll just do, your rectus abdominis.
Right.
Diagonal patterns, you see the pitchers do their PNF, their diagonal patterns and things like that. But you can do those in any sort with medicine balls, so you're getting your trunk. You can do it in standing. You can do it with, your bat, things like that. Medicine ball work, any sort of rotational activity that is more functional because you guys are always in that rotational plane.
That's very good information right there.
The other thing with the oblique injury that I would say is what's above the obliques, which is your thoracic spine.
Okay.
Your cervical spine's your neck, your lumbar spine is your low back. Everyone knows about that. But in between is your thoracic spine. And what happens in a lot of guys that have oblique injuries as well is if your hips aren't moving and your thoracic spine's not moving when you go to rotate and hit the ball, then everything's coming just from the abdominals. Does that make sense? So a lot of guys are stiff in their thoracic spine and need to do more mobility up there, which would include like thoracic spine stretching and mobilization from your trainers, stuff like that.
See, this is why I just play baseball and I swing a stick for a living, because this is some difficult stuff. But you know what I want to do one video is break down, like, I know I'm going to have you talk about the transverse abdominals. How do you say that?
Transverse abdominis.
Abdominus, yeah. So I want to talk about that in a minute because I know that you talked with me about it before, but I want to do a video where you can like show me some things to do for the thoracic spine to kind of help make me more flexible or make people more flexible in that area, because that is interesting.
Yeah, no, I can definitely do that. And that is an area that a lot of guys don't, I haven't seen a lot of guys work on their thoracic spine, but it is something, like when someone goes to push you or like you want your back cracked, those sort of feelings where you feel like that upper part of your back is just stiff.
Right.
And you should actually move a lot there. A lot of people don't know you should actually get a lot of movement from your thoracic spine. Guys like Tim Lincecum, I know you just put a video up about him.
Yep.
He can move there, so that's one thing that he gets that a lot of guys don't get. And it's not, some guys are just naturally more flexible, but it's also something that you need to work on. If that thoracic spine isn't moving, then you're rotating all at your lumbar spine and your abdominals, and you're going to get these back strains, these oblique strains, things like that.
That is really interesting. All right, so talk to me real quick, because you gave me a rundown probably 6 months ago, and I'm not smart enough to remember all this stuff. So the transverse abdomini, is that how you say it? Abdominis?
Yeah, there you go. You got it.
All right, so what is that? Because I know a lot of people, when they talk about, like, they just think of, like, their six-pack abs and, like, obliques, and that's really all they know. But what else is there?
Yeah, so you actually have three sets of abdominals. Your rectus, which is your six-pack, which I'm sure you have, right, Anto?
Well, a little bit. I've been working on it.
And then the obliques, which is when you work on your planks and things like that, and that's the really important muscle in rotation, which is why a lot of guys are straining it. And then the transverse abdominis is actually a lot lower than your rectus. So you have your six-pack, and then if you go below that, then your transverse abdominis is what's there. And the transverse is also really important in protecting your back. So a lot of times when guys are swinging and they get back pain, we look at their transverse abdominis, and a lot of guys can't even find it to fire it. And if you're doing a lot of these abdominal exercises, but you're not firing that muscle, then you're really not training it or getting it stronger. If your brain can't even turn the muscle on, then when you're doing things like medicine ball work and stuff like that, it's not actually doing anything for that muscle that you can't turn on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. So how do we turn it on?
So I know with you, we talked a little bit about the cue that I tend to give people to try to turn it on is, you need to put your fingers down below your rectus abdominis, which would be down below your six-pack. And then you think about if you were going to the bathroom, right, Anto? You're doing your business.
Right.
The number one kind of business. and then you had to stop the flow.
Right.
Those would be the muscles that you would use. You would use in your transverse abdominis.
Oh, that stings a little bit, but okay.
Yeah, I know, it's not comfortable. I don't recommend it, but just to at least fire that muscle.
Okay.
That's how I would recommend you at least, at home, if you're listening to this or watching this and you want to see if you can even find it, all you have to do is put your hands there, below your abdominal muscles that you can really feel, the pronounced ones, and then see if you can cut off. Same. And then if you can feel the muscle kind of pop out under your fingers, then at least you can turn it on, and then you can train it. But if you can't turn it on, then you have to practice how to turn it on. That muscle, when you go to swing or when you go to pitch, that muscle needs to be firing to protect your back.
I got you. So if I'm doing, and I know we said just doing your traditional crunch or those type of ab routines probably isn't the best thing for you, especially for a baseball player. But if we're going to do something where we're involving our core, should we be turning that on before we go? Say like we're going to do a medicine ball workout. Should I be worrying about turning that on and then doing my workout?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend at least until your brain can turn it on without you having to consciously think about it. Then what I teach people to do is turn it on first and then do whatever activity you're going to do. So if you're going to do a crunch, put your fingers there, turn on the muscle, feel it pop into your finger, and then do the crunch. That way, all the muscles in your back, these little tiny multifidi, all these muscles that you'll hear people like me talk about, all those will be protected now because your transverse is doing the job it was intended to do.
I got you. Very good. Well, is there anything else that you can think of on this subject? Because you were covering a lot of good stuff, and I want to get more in depth later. Like maybe we can do another video where we just focus on one of these subjects we're talking about. But with oblique strains, is there anything else important that you want to bring up?
The last thing that I would say is with any sort of strain, it's really important. The body has its own process of healing. So a lot of times guys will be really uncomfortable with resting.
Right.
I don't know if that's the case for you, but it probably is, right? You have an injury and it's really hard to just rest, but the inflammatory phase, like when you injure a muscle, when you strain a muscle, the inflammatory phase of healing takes about 3 to 7 days. And so that's a time you need to just kind of let the body heal and rest. I think a lot of times people will jump back in faster than they probably should, which I understand sometimes that it's not something you guys can control as much as maybe you would like to, but 3 to 7 days at least to let the body relax before you start getting into aggressive stretching and strengthening again. That's the only other thing I would say. And then, the two major things are that hip flexibility and then the thoracic spine flexibility, because those are what sit below and above. So if you don't have the flexibility there, then your obliques are doing all the work.